Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our third session. And as usual, we're going to open up with our little video that gives you an overview of day one. And each session, we're going to have a video that recaps and introduces the speakers for the day. So here we go. Now to the exciting part, our featured guest. So welcome, Hilette Virgo. She is the CEO of Hilette Virgo Motivates. And I love this woman. I remember when she launched her book and her business or ministry at the same time, I was taking screenshots of the post because I was like, this young lady is an entrepreneur. She's making the right moves and she's just hitting it. She's just hitting all the right spots. And it's just been fascinating to watch her grow and develop. She is a Christian life coach, an international preacher, a transformational speaker, a best-selling author, and now publisher and a book coach. She has recently established the Great Nest Academy and the Great Nest publication. And you can go to the Summit website, entrepreneursecrets.com, check Summit speakers and read a more fulsome detail of her profile. But she's a former police officer who was voted in Jamaica as the last top cop. She now lives in the United States of America. She has an awesome YouTube channel with her children. I just love how she's raising her children. And if you need one-to-one coaching, keynotes, this is what she does. Hilette Virgo motivates, writer, speaker, coach. And those are her nest eggs. And it just gives me great pleasure to welcome her. So let's send up some hearts on Facebook, send up some emoticons on Zoom, and let's make welcome Hilette A. Virgo to this summit. Hi, Hilette, welcome.
Hi, Ruth. Thanks for having me. I'm just here like, wow, this is just awesome, Ruth. I am so proud of you. This is the standard. Loving it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So, welcome, Hilette. It's a pleasure having you. No, I saw an article about you in the Jamaica Gleaner. And I was fascinated by the tale of that story. How did a police officer become an author? Tell us more about that journey.
It's an interesting journey. And all I can say is that God is indeed a strategist. Because I've always been a writer, Ruth. I won an essay competition when I was in grade 5. I believe I was 9 at the time. And it was myself as the commissioner of police. Right throughout my years going to school, I had no idea of becoming a police officer. It was a little strategy I devised or heard. I wanted to access UN. And the only way I know how, I was fascinated with UN. I just really wanted to join the UN mission. And I knew somebody who was a police officer who was a part of it. So I thought, this was a great stepping stone to access UN. So that's why I joined the force. So I've always been writing prior. But it's so funny because I've had friends who I look up to, and I told them over the years I wanted to write books, and they said to me, nobody reading books anymore. And I mean, this is like 10 years ago. I recently had the memory. I said, two persons said that to me. This is so funny. Anyhow, I was always writing like mini blogs on Facebook, and persons would say to me, stop it, you need to write books. Stop playing around, write books. But I mentioned I started at the essay that I wrote because I'm saying God is so funny, because writing found me before policing. All this time it was pointing to me that, you know, writing was always, it's a part of my family. No one was published, but I guess my grandmother and my mother, my mom is a teacher, they write very well. So going through high school, doing CSEC, CAPE, going UE, I've always had teachers say to me, you write creatively, you are a great writer. But for me, it was always, what do I do with this? And then I remember writing a report for uh, an assistant commissioner of police. And he said to me, young lady, you write so well. And I said to him, what do I do with this in the force? And he said, you'll figure it out one day. And the rest is history, because God is just amazing. I left the force after being nominated top cop for St. James Area 1, second in the island. I decided I was going to leave the force on a high. And it was a leap of faith. Came to the States, first time hearing about a life coach. It was just somebody said, I'm going to introduce you to someone. And she said to me, writing, speaking, and coaching goes together. And I said, wow, that makes sense. I've always been a speaker all my life. I was a child preacher, always writing, and coaching was something. When I learned of what it was, I said, but that's me. And from that encounter, hiring a life coach, it was, what must I say? The journey has been, I'm still in awe of how God operates.
Okay, wow. So we see that it was always there. So one of the lessons we can learn from that is anybody can make the switch. It really doesn't matter, but we see some telltale signs from before, because you were always writing and you were getting compliments along the way.
Right.
To bring out that gift. So maybe you are watching this on a replay or you're here live. Pay attention to what persons are saying. You may not feel you have it, but don't dismiss it. Borrow their eyes. So tell us about the first book that you wrote. What led you to write that particular book? And what was the process like, and publishing, and yeah, just give us a little synopsis of that.
Right. So my first book is not published. My first published book, I know that's what you're asking me about. So when my coach told me, you know, writing, and I was like, how do I go about this? She sent me a book as a part of the package that she wrote. It was a book of affirmations for women. And when I saw it, it was literally one affirmation per page with lines. And I looked at it, I was shocked, I was stunned. I was like, this is a book? If somebody put this together, I can do this too. I was just in awe, because in my mind, a book, I always thought of prose. I had a literature background, and I always thought of, you know, those complex prose or novels or that kind of thing. It never dawned on me that a book can just something simple once it carried a message. And when I saw it, it just clicked something here, and I said, I'm going to do this. I'm always working with young people and children. I'm going to write a book of affirmation for kids. So I went back in the force. I mean, they told me that they didn't accept my resignation, sent me a letter telling me to come back. And I came back. And when I did, I said, all right, because I've always been working in the schools, I want this book of affirmations out, but I want it sponsored. So I went about kind of seeking out stakeholders who were interested, because I didn't want it for profit. For me, it was my first fruit, and I just felt I wanted this to benefit and impact persons. So I was just not going anywhere with it, knocking on doors, nobody. And then because I had a what people would say, an unrealistic timeline as well. the Child's Month was coming up, and this was probably January, and I wanted that book, and I wanted it now. And I was hearing about illustrations, met with an illustrator. It just wasn't coming together. And then Crystal Day starting having her, she started putting out some little things on Facebook. You know, you're reading people's posts. I was always inspired. Ruth, I was always inspired by your posts as well. And I said, okay, so the book of affirmations didn't work out. What am I gonna do? And then I realized a lot of people were doing devotionals. To be honest, devotionals are not my favorite books. And this is just my personal I've read a lot of devotionals, but they have never really, the one page, I know that some persons, they like short books. I prefer a long book, and I like something that I would say have substance. So when you give me a one pager, for me, it's just not enough to anchor me, and that's personal. So I decided I wasn't so keen on it. I was like, should I do a devotional? But I'm not a devotional person. And that is how I started writing. And if you know my book is a devotional, but it's different. It's probably not a devotional because there's a prologue where I made up a story. It's 21 days, and the story, all the 21 days refer to the story. It's like an analysis of the first story. Never seen it anywhere. It was just God inspired it. So when I became a coach, I wrote a 7 weeks coaching program. Yes, 7 modules. And I did all this research. By this, I was doing leadership training, and I was speaking about the eagle. So I had all this information because I was constantly researching. And then I was saying, God, what should I write about? I heard the Holy Spirit say, convert the courses into a book.
Hey.
Yes.
Yes.
Convert the course you have in a book. So even though I use this style where I adapted a story, it's kind of like the story of the ugly duckling, but it's about the eagle living up with chickens. So, but it was, I did my research, and it's really scriptural. It's heavily scriptured, but I use the information I had from my research, and it took me less than a month to write. I wouldn't say it was easy because it was a lot of sleepless nights. I couldn't sleep. The Holy Spirit just kept pouring in. And I knew it was a matter of being prepared. And I had because I had all this information, so it was easier for me to just be flowing. And in less than a month, the book was complete.
Awesome. I don't know if you are hearing the tips, Hilette is just dropping some value bombs. So sometimes the book you start out with is not the book that becomes your first published book. She talked about seeing what somebody did, and that can inspire you. Sometimes you say, but I can do better than this, because I know one author that did that and he wrote a better novel, of course. But it's about the courage to try. She also, that whole thing of converting the course to a book, and you can work backwards too. That's another way to win. It can be the book that becomes a course. So she's giving us some ways to win with books there. Not just listing and say, do a course, but you're hearing a bit of the process. And that for those who are Christians, the Holy Spirit, just like he did in the Bible, when David wrote, or when John wrote on the Isle of Patmos, Jesus said, the things that I'm telling you, just write down. So sometimes ideas are just coming to you. And the other key there, times will make you write a book faster, that she said, is she had materials before. So she was just able to gather, organize, and do what she needed to do. So let's pick up with the story. So now you've written the book. How did you publish it? Did you get a traditional deal, or was it that you paid a company, or you did it yourself? And then having published it, what started happening for you as a result?
So I knew nothing apart from getting it completed. I knew absolutely nothing how to go forward. There was this gentleman, he's a friend of mine. He's big on publishing his own books, self-publishing, and he has two brands that he goes by. And we were talking, I was asking him, you know, how do I go about this? And he said to me, I would publish your book for free for you. We were discussing getting it done, but for some reason, that's not the process God wanted for me, because it just didn't feel right. I didn't want to give, I said to myself, this is something that it's my legacy. It is something that I'm going to have for life. I didn't know if I wanted to put it in somebody's hand like that. No contract, nothing, just getting them. I didn't trust sending over my manuscript. It was something that I battled with because he said no costs, just pay to get the graphic work done and he would do the rest. And I also looked at his branding and it didn't resonate. It didn't sound like something I want to associate with my religious book. It had something that it seemed kind of eerie. And he was also publishing books for Halloween and that kind of thing. So for me, I was saying, no, God, I was wrestling with it. It was tempting. And then Daylight Publishers contacted them and compared to free, you know, this price, just think of you getting something free and anything you, you know, the cost of publishing, Ruth, to editing, that kind of thing. It was kind of like a shocker for me. I was like, I can't afford that. And here I was, because I was getting it done for free. But I said, you know what, I'm going to make the investment. And I took a loan. And I got a deal, to be honest. I got a deal and I paid for it. But I'm going to fast forward that when I started selling books, I felt guilty. I was like, here I was, because I had no idea what the cost would be like. So when I heard a cost, it sounded hefty. But when I started selling it, I felt like I cheated the publisher. And that's the truth. I said to myself, wow, if this book sales continue the way it does, it's not fair that somebody put in that work without even knowing. I could tell it was a lot of work, but that's how I felt after. But I think it was a worthwhile investment. And even, I don't want to be fast forwarding, Ruth. So go ahead with the second question, because
no, man, continue the train of thought.
I was gonna say, and maybe I'm losing the train of thought. I was gonna speak about knowing the process now.
Because yeah, just go right into it. Just go right into it. Yes.
Okay, right. So
knowing what you know now. Yeah.
Knowing what I know now, right. So I was gonna jump to tell you that when I did my second book, the idea was this book did its course over a year, and I'm gonna focus on this new book. And the truth is, it's been a week. Someone asked me, we have not heard about your second book. And the truth is that my first book, even though I was planning to kind of park it because I was upgrading it, this book is the book that people keep asking about. Because this book has, since COVID, I was lamenting and saying, how am I going to do this? Because I did a lot of my promotions in churches, that kind of thing. And when churches closed, I was like, okay, I have to go back to the drawing board. This is not going to happen no more. But I keep mentioning God and the Holy Spirit, because that's how my life is directed. And it took a lady. I went to a church, and a lady was visiting from Trinidad, and the Holy Spirit just told me to pass my book over to her without a word. I passed it over. She looked at it, she smiled, she said, yours? And I said, yes. And she said, wow. And she kept it. And after church, we had a discussion, and she said, how can I get a copy? And I said, well, that copy could be yours. We can just make you can purchase it. I tell her how she could, make her payment. And I forgot about it. And a few months later, somebody contacted me on Facebook. And she said, hey, I've been trying to reach you. I've been trying to get to you. This was my business page, not my personal page. So I didn't check that page for a while. So the message was there for a while, and she sent 3 messages. She said, I need to get in contact with you. And when I did, she said, wow, I'm so happy. We're so impressed with your book that we're considering flying you down to Trinidad after the after the pandemic. I was like, what? She said, yes, you are so impressive, and I've been sharing your book with everybody. And then she called back and she said, listen, we are not going to wait. How about we set up a Zoom meeting and you address our women? And that started a whole country hopping on Zoom, because since I've done presentations with St. Lucia, Barbados, 7 Caribbean countries because of this one encounter. And for every presentation, these people, they order books, they order copies of my books. So and still persons are still asking about that book. That's the book that is still trending.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Hilette. If what she's saying resonates, just send up some hearts. And remember, we're going to have a Q&A. But the reason why we're not teaching on this summit in terms of a PowerPoint and somebody saying, here are the 5 ways. We want you to hear stories, because stories stay with you. And if you listen carefully, you can extract, and you're seeing what we're talking about when you look beyond book sales to purpose and mission, how you automatically also sell books. So here she's saying that one person, the impact on one person, and how that has created now like a snowball effect. So you can have events on Zoom. You don't have to fly down, and people are still ordering books. So I don't want anybody to leave thinking that we don't care about book sales. We're just saying, if you look at the bigger picture, the purpose, then you can actively create programs, products, or people will approach you or services to sell your book, to order books. As a matter of fact, one of the things they always say is that when you speak, you sell more books from the back of the room. You have persons, for example, they don't charge to speak. They just ask you to ensure that the books are sold. And sometimes the sale of the books end up being more than what you would have paid them for the speaking engagement. And sometimes it's a reverse. They invite you to speak, they pay you, they fly you down, and then the book sales now become broader at the event. And I've experienced that. So Hilette, that is fascinating. Just before I turn it over to the audience, what from this experience, well, no, you yourself, I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. You yourself now have branched off now. You worked with a publisher like myself before. You have now taken charge of the process and you've launched Greatness Publication. How has that been going for you? And based on that experience and your experience, what keys would you give to others? Maybe it's an author who's already published and now they're saying, I want to take on the process myself, or I want to launch a publishing business. Just share with us that journey and advice, some keys for this kind of person.
Right. So publishing wasn't something that I had in mind at all. And I think we have had brief conversations where I tell you that that was not the aim. When I went around to different states with my books, and wherever I went, persons were just fascinated. Wow, you're an author. Wow, how did you go? And people would ask you a lot of questions. And, oh, I want to write a book, but I don't know how to go about it. So I realized there was a space for book coaching. So over time, I said, I probably should offer book coaching, because I sat with a friend and it took us about 15 minutes, no joke, of summarizing a book, writing the skeleton for about 15 minutes. And when I did, she said, oh my God, Hilette, you're good at this. This is serious. You need to help people to write books. Because it just came naturally for me to just sit with her and say, okay, so it was a strategy that I had in my mind, and I practiced it on somebody, and it was just a wow. And I said, I'm going to do some book coaching. I'm going to try to partner with somebody to have them publish people's books, because I'm not interested in that. I just want to help people to write books. And because of my literature background as well, because what I learned is that a lot of people are interested in writing books. And I want to say this, Ruth. This is something that is dear to my heart, and I want to say it. A lot of people want to write books, but I find that they're not readers. And that for me, I just, every day I say, listen, it's good because it looks glamorous and a lot of people are catching on to people, you know, having a book, that kind of thing. And I'm offering editing now and it shows, it tells. And I'm saying, it's good to take notes and it's good to read. If you're not in the habit of reading, it's like you're shooting yourself in the foot because you're not reading people's material. But you want, when you write your book, you want people to read it. That's one thing. And two, it shows and it tells if you're a reader when you write. Because yes, I'm not saying you have to have a literature background or that kind of thing, but at least read and pay attention. When I was reading Michelle Obama's book, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna use the style and that kind of thing. When I was reading Barack Obama's book, it's loaded with metaphors, and I was like, I am gonna go study, and I bought a book on metaphor, and I was paying attention and saying, I love how this man expresses himself, that kind of thing. A lot of people these days, I realize, because of the opening of writing books. And I'm passionate about this part. I wouldn't do anybody any justice if I didn't say this, that I would discourage nobody to write books because write a book. You might not be a seasoned writer or a creative writer. You have a message, but at least do yourself the favor of practicing to read. Because even as a writer, sometimes when I put pen to paper, my thoughts are not flowing, and I take up a book and read and it starts flowing, and I said, wow, look at the difference it makes. We develop our vocabulary from reading. And so that's something critical that I preach. Read. If you want to write a book, practice or start by reading. So I developed that strategy back to book coaching, and I said, I'm going to help people with book coaching. But when I approached the person that I had in mind to do the collaboration, the person wasn't interested. And it's just so funny because God literally said to me, that's not the plan I had for you. And he just opening doors upon doors. I found a graphic designer that he designed three of my books, because my second book is a trilogy. So 2 more are following or should be out already, but they're not. But he sent a graphic designer within half an hour. He designed 3 covers. I've never seen anything like that. It was like, even though he cannot do it again, but he did it the first time, and that for me was confirmation. And we have partnered since, and God just keep on sending people my way to form the team for the publishing. So I published my first book, my own book, published it for my birthday, and somebody approached me and said, hey, I love your cover, I like how you put your book together, can you publish mine? And I said to them, I don't know, I just did mine. And the person said, listen, I want you to do it. I trust you. And she paid, got it done. And from that one client, 6 others came from that one client, came all at once. And so all of that was just, and it's a process. I'm still learning. As I said, when you spend time with books, it can't be that you're just focusing on what you have. I like looking at other people's books. Don't reinvent the wheel. Try to pick up tips here and there. Constantly, there are persons on YouTube, people writing blogs about, what's trending or tips you can. So it's a self-learning process for me. But so far, I just give all praises to God because I know this is his doing. And Greatness Publication, it's where quality meets excellence. What sets us apart, or what for me, is that it's not just a book. When you take, and I tell my clients, and it kind of gets hard for me because I said, this is not just your book, this is my book too, because my branding is on it and I want it to represent us. So for me, it's quality, it's excellence. It's not just writing, when you come to greatness, there are things you learn all along the way through the process.
Right. Well, you've done a fabulous job in stating that, and that's why we need different stories. So one of the keys, as I said before, was models. The models are not just the persons, but in terms of the book. Because, for example, when you are doing a book cover, You need to look at what the other book covers look like in your category, in your genre, because when you try to be different, the reader gets confused. Book readers buy based on familiarity. And so if there's a particular style of book that you like, read books in that genre. I like Brian Tracy kind of books, so I write like him. So you find a model, and as you read, pick out phrases, watch what other people do. So you don't like to read, but you've been called to write. Now is the time to start reading and doing the research. You want to learn to publish. You heard Didan said it too. She read books, she did her research, and you see the quality of her book. We can see based on what Hilette is doing, when I watch her growth in less than 2 years, I'm like, this girl is really researching and she's putting top-notch stuff out there. So the key there, I'm hearing, be a researcher, be a reader, look for how books are organized and follow suit. Not that you're copying, because you're going to put your own style onto it, but you need examples, you need templates, and this is helping her to win. And for those, my approach in the academy is a little different. I am coaching you. Hilette is offering the full out publishing services that if you don't want to take this time to be learning and going through, you want somebody to take charge of the process for you, I'm recommending Hilette. If you want to learn so that you can do it, then become part of the academy. And like I said, we teach you also how to win with books. So it depends on what you need help with. But I offer her, I'm putting my stamp of approval on her. And you can contact her. We're going to drop her contact in the chat. But like Fioma was asking about getting a proofreader and editor, Hilette is offering publishing services. So link with her, find out her prices, who is on her team. You investigate. And as she said, she didn't elaborate on it, but she felt she did her publisher a disservice when she started seeing the sales. When somebody complains, for example, that 1,000 US or 150,000 Jamaican dollars is too much to publish a book, I smile, I say, you don't understand the value. Or even if the person charge you $2,000, because guess what? You sell 100 books and you price that at 20 US or 25 US, 2,000 Jamaican dollars. That's 100 book. You would have broken even. By the time you sell the next 100 books, you're into profit zone. You can sell back a book. And most Caribbean authors will sell at least 200 books. So by the time you sell 200 books, you're already in profit zone. Plus you have the copyright for the book, the ability to print and sell that book. Let's just look at book sales alone. You have the ability to sell that book throughout your lifetime. You can license that book to different companies, different distributors. And then after you're dead, you still own the copyright for another 90 years, at least in Jamaican law, 70 years elsewhere, that your descendants can be making money from that book. So you see the price, and that is just book selling. Look at opportunities. I have a client, they saw her book, they flew her to a Caribbean island, and I think they were willing to pay her $1,500 just to give a workshop, US dollars. The book gave her that opportunity.
Yes, true. So my book, because it's about the ego. I always tell people that my book literally, it gave me wings, because when I was exiting the force for the second time, I was emboldened to do so because I saw the value of my book. I said, listen, it was like there was nothing that could hold me back after the opportunities. And I say it takes you into a room, because as you said, TED Talks, if you don't have a book, it's not likely for you to get there. When persons hear that you have a book, it does something. It really does something. I was gonna make another point, but today my brain is not
All right. So let's take some questions from the audience and feedback. Donald, can you give us any feedback? It's question and answer time. You can check on Facebook or Zoom. Let us know what's happening. What's happening? What are people saying? Any questions so far? What are the comments?
Well, they're loving the story. They're saying that the story is like incredible and they're very inspired, you know. That's what's happening on Facebook. So you go, girl.
Thank you. I remember the point, Sister Ruth.
Yes.
The point I want to make too about when you were just speaking about the value. I said to a client recently that if we're supposed to buy like a bedroom set or a furniture for a house, we say, okay, it's worth it. We pay $200,000 for a fridge, anything. And I said to them, this is something that it's from your brain. This is something that is coming out of you, your words. Obviously, we do not put enough value on our words. And to say that, listen, after a while, the fridge is going to stop working, the bedroom set, the whole set, whatever it is, going to break down, I have to replace it. But your words are going to transcend time. I think about my books, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, if the world lasts, not knowing me, get a piece of me in a book, a piece of me literally think it's saying, this is how I think.
Yes.
And I'm saying, I think about my funeral and I said, people don't have to go about thinking what to say about me because
yes.
I have said, when you write your profile, a lot of times as an ordinary person, ordinary, like going about your business, you don't, especially if you have a job that is, you're not going anywhere, you don't really get to write a profile. But Ruth, when you asked me for my profile, I realized that I needed to upgrade it. You're constantly upgrading your profile when you're an author speaking this kind of thing. And so you don't wait for anybody to tell you about you. You're actually writing your eulogy, setting the tone, because everything about you is being said. Persons just need to use your own words. So you do not put enough value on. And another thing, I promote books too, because when you were starting out, you spoke about, sales is good, but it's way more than that. I recommend that people write books to heal.
Hey.
You're going through something,
yes.
You put it down, you write it. Healing process. When you're inspiring, and this is what it's not the sales that impact me as much as somebody sending me a note and said, your book took me through a tough time. I used your devotional for fasting and prayer. A teacher texted me last week. I had to go on a Zoom with her students, and she said to me, we went through your book from December, and the students, they were in awe when I showed up. They have been using my books for devotions. Yes. My books are in places that I'll never go. People in the UK contacting me and saying, hey girl, this book. So it transcends time. So the cost, knowing what I know now, I'm saying, oh my gosh, if somebody tell you, listen, pay 500,000 Jamaican dollars for your book to get it, to put it, because it takes a process. It takes some work, a lot of work. Ruth is advocating for persons to do it because it can be done. But if you don't have the time, trust me, the persons who are studying the process, because even though it still gives me a headache to put somebody's book together, I love it. I am enjoying the process, but it is tedious. It takes a lot of brain work. There are days when after I sit and reading over and, putting things together, I sit and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so brain tired. It's a lot of work. So your book, your writing, it is very valuable. You need to think about it as a masterpiece, as a treasure. Nothing in your house. The car you drive crash and that's it written off. But your words,
longevity. Yeah. Awesome. Hilette, I agree with you 100%. And we have a client for you. My friend Cheryl, who was my prayer partner, the spiritual leader on my team for my first book. She's in Canada. She's saying she's looking forward to publishing her book with you. Go, Cheryl. Go, Hilette.
He's awesome. Yes.
So I am promoting taking charge of the process like I did. You don't necessarily have to do everything. So you're operating similar to a publishing house. So you get the team, because when I took charge, I wasn't doing my layout. I wasn't doing my cover design. I wasn't doing any of that. I found a one-stop shop, a company that provided the editing, the proofing, everything at a reasonable rate that I didn't have to go back into debt to get it done. So I am helping persons to replicate that. And then I offer myself as your coach, as your guide. But as Hilette says, it is a lot of work. Some of you don't have the time, the patience to learn, and the expertise. So if you don't have the time, and you don't want to learn, and you don't want to manage the process, go with somebody like Hilette. Somebody was asking about the title of your book, and Donna has posted it. It is Activating Her Eagle Instincts. Right. And woohoo! So I am so happy for you. That's what we want to do. Part of when we do this summit, it is not just, it is giving Caribbean authors a place to shine. It is a platform, no one in the future, where you can come and promote your services and it's a place to give Caribbean authors a place to shine. And one of the things that Hilette said today is that a book gives you wings. And so if you want to fly, if you want to soar like an eagle, write a book. And you don't have to be a literary genius. You don't even have to be the best at English, because you can pay editors who do, they have the ideas. You give them the ideas, they're able to, with line editors, they're able to structure your sentences. It's a little bit more expensive, that part, but they're able to put it together. A good editor will give it the structure and ensure that the phraseology is okay. And with, for example, when you use pro writing aid, a lot of us in the Caribbean, we write in the passive voice a lot. No, you need to write more in the active voice. Pro writing aid will flag all of those passive voices and say, change this. And they also give you suggestions, what words to instead of using, you will be unable to, they will say, just say, you cannot. So there are tools that you can use. I don't want you to be intimidated if you have an idea for a book and you're not a writer. There is a program, I have a program, we do guided writing in our rocket writing thing, where you can speak your book, you don't even have to write it. And then you can pay somebody to clean it up, and an editor to clean it up nicely so that you can get that masterpiece. So don't think you have to be a literary genius to write your book. Any other question? Any other comments? Anything, Donna?
No, nothing else.
All right. So Hilette, where can we find out more about you and what you have to offer? And yeah, where can we find you online and persons who want to reach out to you?
Right, my website is under construction. There were some issues, but you can find me on Facebook, and you mentioned my YouTube channel, Hilspiration Virgo. Hil for my name, Hilette, Hilz, Piration, Hilspiration Virgo. Donna is adding the handle there, and on Facebook, my name, Hilette A Virgo.
All right. Any email?
It's Hilette Virgo Motivates at Gmail.
As I said, you know, this is a platform to give our Caribbean authors a place to shine. All right, so Hilette, this has just been wonderful. I am touched by the story and the nuggets. Before we go, what is your key takeaway from this session? You heard an inspiring story. What is the takeaway? Come on, give me your top 3 takeaways from this session. Books to heal. Boom, love that.